we moved to Beverly, and we got an apartment there. We had no car, and Dad had to walk about half an hour from our house to the airport. And but pretty soon, some of the people who also lived in Beverly picked him up, and so we, so
got a ride. You mean?
Yeah. At first, we didn't make that much money, and we didn't even have a telephone. And I remember Carl Schoffel one day saying to us, "We can't even reach you. You don't even have a telephone." 3 years later, we had saved up enough money for a down payment, and so we went around here, but Dad and I wanted the children to stay in the same schools that they were in for the last 3 years, because we had moved around so much and we didn't think that it would be nice for them to, So we found a house, 18 Roosevelt Beverly, and only 2 minutes away from where we were in the apartment. And I remember, Tineke, one day we said, "Oh, we haven't looked at this and we hadn't looked at that." And we went here and we rang the bell and the lady opened, and we said, "Well, could we look at this, that and the other thing?" And she said, "Oh yes," and she did. Later the realtor told us we should never have done that, because that's not done without them being forewarned, and all that. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. What did we know? It was the first house Dad and I ever bought, so we didn't know the ins and outs. The kitchen was so old and so old-fashioned since 1907.
A really
it was
cute
awful.
Yellow.
And it had wainscoting that was gray, coming up.
Dark gray.
And the stove was terrible, and the refrigerator was nothing, and it didn't have much of a window.
No.
No. So we had someone put in a new window and all that, and then Dad went to Sears Roebuck, and he ordered all the cabinets and all that, and he put them in himself. Pete was never much of a help. He always had so many other things, but Kerwin did.
Well, he was more mechanical, Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because when he was 18, he had an old Ford, one of these old ones, with fins on the back. And one day he said, "Can I use the garage to take the engine out and
hoist it up?"
And he did, and we thought, he's 18, and what does he know about cars, He did it, he put it back together again, and the car ran fine. So, I mean...
natural talent there.
Yeah. Right. But Kerwin was more at home helping his father.
Well, I remember I got rid of my accent as quickly as I could, because the kids were teasing me about it. All the American kids, but I was popular for a while because I was different, But then I worked hard to get rid of that accent, because, I didn't want the taunting from the other kids. But and of course with the different name, and
Oh yeah. Right. Unfortunately, your name.
Yeah, exactly. I still get it.
Probably do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Whenever I meet anybody on the job, and they ask who I am, and they just do a little taken aback. What's Gerben? It's Dutch.
After about a year on Roosevelt Avenue, the director of the theological seminary, Dr. Goddard, who went to our church, said to me, "Tina, how would you like to work for us in the library?" And I said, "I've never worked in a library, or can I do it?" And he said, "Oh yeah, you'll pick it up very easily." And I worked there for 15 years, and I loved those years. With the professors and the students and the people I worked with, it was all wonderful. They were very happy years. It was busy, and they had asked Dad right away to become treasurer of the church, so we were kind of busy. But anyway, it all worked and we had a happy time. In your years at the college, there were several
Yeah.
guys who were interested in you and took you out for dates and all that, but it never worked out completely.
No.
No.
Right.
But then there was Brooks Sanders, and he was the son of one of the deans. Well, we didn't see it quite because we didn't know Brooks at all, you know, and we didn't know his family.
He seemed rather young and immature.
And he was.
He was.
He was.
Yes.
Yeah. But he came back from the European seminar, and all of a sudden there was.
he had written whole bunches of letters.
Oh, I
while
know,
I was gone. Yeah.
And I know. At first, when you came home, you said, "I got all these letters from him," you know, and I still don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. Well, then we started dating more steadily, and that's right, and then got engaged and married, obviously.
Yeah. But as soon as the news got out on the college that she was going to marry Brooks Sanders, several guys came to my desk and said, "Mr. Swart, do you have another daughter?"
Oh my goodness, really?
Yes. Pete came home one day and he said, "I just met the girl I'm going to marry." They were at a McDonald's.
Oh.
Friends.
Yeah.
Jerry Del Perro was one of them. And he was so taken by her that right away that evening he said, "I'm going to marry her." And then some years later, Gerben was ready for college and he went to Gordon College for half a year. Flunked out. But he had made some friends there, and one of the girlfriends there turned out to be Sandy Lynch. And she made such an impression on him that he married her later, after he had been in the service for 2 years.
I was working on the garage, rebuilding the garage.
Oh, I remember.
And and I had been drafted, and I had a date that I was supposed to report, and I was taking my time fixing up the garage and not working very hard on it. And Mom got mad at me one day and she says, "If you don't finish that garage, you can't go in the service." And I said, "I quit."
He wanted to do what his dad did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So he also had carriages and horse-drawn carriages.
It was neat. And what?
At his wedding.
And it was really romantic and wonderful. The only thing was, they also had rain.
And the church was growing by leaps and bounds, really.
It was like a home church for a while.
Yeah.
At the Goddards.
We would gather together on Chebeco Road at the Shuffles house for Sunday school.
Oh, right.
For Sunday school.
For Sunday school.
And then we would all hop in our car and drive half a mile
to the Goddards
to the
for
Goddards
the church
house,
service.
who had all the seats set up and all that. And so in '62 we bought the building. Because the Methodist Church had built a new building for themselves, and so we bought that building, and there was a lot of work, but most of the men did a lot of it, and of course, since there were only so many people that were members, we did everything. I was a Sunday school teacher, and I belonged to this and that and the other thing, and Dad and I did the communion table and all that, and whatever had to be done, we helped. We tried to get enough money together to build our own church building, and it was very difficult to get a good spot, find a good spot for it, but we finally found one in Ipswich. That's about a 20-minute drive from Beverly, but we all gladly did it, and so then we built our own church building. Right now, we have about 450 to 500 people attending every Sunday. So all of a sudden we didn't have any children at home anymore. And I have had so much time on my hands. And then there was one lady in our church who was the director of Birthright in Beverly, a help for pregnant women. And she needed more helpers. And it was in the bulletin a couple of times, you know. And then one Sunday, and I didn't do anything about it because I thought, oh well, there's so many people who could help her out, and you know, and I don't know that I want to do that. And then one Sunday after church she said, "And Tine, when are you going to join us?" Yeah, oh boy, this is getting very serious and, and very personal, you know. So I went home and we talked about it, and Dad said, "Why not?" Yeah, okay, why not? So after about 3 years, she got such health problems and she was in a car accident, and she said, "I think the Lord is trying to tell me something. I should stop, you know, because I can't do all this anymore." And so they started looking for another director, and but then the board of Birthright said, "Oh, Tina, you are the natural because you have taken over so much already. So why don't you become director?" And I said, "I never wanted that. And well, we will make you director. You don't have any say in it." Okay, so
Yeah.
so the next meeting we had at the office, there was a photographer from the paper, from the daily paper in Beverly and Salem. And they were interviewing me, and I didn't know that was coming. That evening, I just went for the meeting.
Yeah.
And they said, "No, you're the director now." And so there was my picture in the papers and all that. After Pete and Jerry were divorced, Pete stayed alone for a long time. And in the meantime, a couple of times he brought home a girl here.
Yeah.
We were not too happy about it, and but then one Christmas he came on his own, alone, and he said, "Well, there are different girls I have in mind, but there is one you should remember the name of." And we said, "Oh, which one?" And he said, "Her name is Karen, and she's Presbyterian." So we thought, okay, how did you get to know her? Oh, friends on the Keys, you know, where I visited, and they knew Karen, and Karen was there. And these people liked Pete so much that they had said to Karen, "If you don't marry him, you don't ever have to come back here." About a year later, Pete and Karen were married in Florida at her parents' house, outside. And it was a beautiful wedding. September of '92, they had their first little girl, and she was named after me. And that was so funny because Karen had asked me before, "Mom, give me a list of boys and girls' names that are Dutch." So I had really done my work, you know, and all that. I had not put my own name on. And Dad and I were in Holland when the little girl was born, and Pete called me there, and he said, "She's born. Oh, so it's a girl. And what did you name her?" "Well, what was your name?" "Catharina Hendrika. We call her Tineke." And I just about hit the floor because that was one of the names that I had not suggested, you know. And 2 years later, they had Eric. In '87,
Yeah.
Dad had a stroke, and he was in the hospital for a week, and then he went to a rehab for another week, and he recovered very well. He wasn't quite the old self again, but never mind. And at that time, we knew that once you've had a stroke, you'll get another one. And for during the next 4.5 years, he had several TIAs, and they are the small ones that go away in 2 minutes or 5 minutes or so. And that wasn't bad because he had one once, the day before we were supposed to go to Holland, and I called the doctor and I said, well, what should we do? And he said, Tina, go. He said, you can't live that way because you don't know when the next one is coming. And if he feels up to it, go. And so 4.5 years later, in 91, he had a bad stroke. That was really a major one. And he went to the Beverly Hospital and was in ICU for 2 weeks. And then for another 2 weeks he was in a regular room, but he wasn't getting any better. And the kids all came, you know, and yeah, we knew it was the end, but we didn't know how long. And the doctor said later, because of his strong heart, he made it for another month, because otherwise he wouldn't have lived that long. But it was a difficult time. And one of my sisters from Holland came over to be with me. And she was planning to go home one Monday. And he was still alive, you know, and I went to the hospital 3 times a day. And so she said, yeah, I'm going home on Monday. And she said, but I can't stay any longer. And so I said to her, is there anything you would still like to do, or a place to go or whatever? And she said, yes, I would like to see Marblehead again, where Uncle Henry was. And so I took her to Marblehead that afternoon. That was on a Tuesday. And we came back at around 3:30, and we had a quick cup of tea, and then I went to the hospital again. And when I came to the hospital, I first saw another man who was in a ward closer near the elevator, and I stayed there for maybe 3 minutes. And then I said, oh, I'm going to see Cor now. And she said, I'll go with you. And when we came to Dad's bed, he was gone already. He was still warm, but I closed his eyes. But he was ready to go. He told me weeks before that. Yeah. So then I was alone. And I stayed alone for 13 years. I had nothing to complain about. I had my house, I had a car, I could drive, I had enough money to live on and all that. So everything was fine, and I thought that would be until I die. You know, this is my life now, and make the best of it. Now it's 2008, and I have been back and forth 36 times.
That many? Wow.
You never dream of those things when you're young.
No.
And then the first time when you start flying and you think, oh boy, how does this thing go up in the air and stay there, and you know, and but there's no other way anymore. So for 13 years I lived alone, was happy enough, was not looking for any changes in my life, and and then one day Grady called, Grady Spires, and he said, Tina, I have to go to a dinner tomorrow night, and I have to bring a woman. I would like to take you. And I said, oh, don't you know I'm older than you are? Because I thought, he knows so many women, you know, younger than he is and all that, younger than I am, anyway. So he said, don't you think I know that? And, oh, okay, I'll go with you to that dinner tomorrow night.
I think it was just on a friendship basis, though, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We were very good friends over all those years, you know. And he had lost his wife 3 years earlier, so he was a widower. And he knew my husband so well, and I knew his wife so well, so we were very much acquainted with each other. And so I said to Grady, "Is it formal?" And he said, "No, but I don't know, but I'll find out." So Saturday morning he called and he said, "It's not formal. I'm just going to wear a
Turtleneck?
turtleneck."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Okay, then I'll wear turtleneck also." And of course we went to the dinner. He picked me up at 6 o'clock. We went to the dinner, and there were several couples that knew both of us from our church and said, "Who are you here with?" And I said, "With Grady Spires." "Oh." Yeah. Okay, aha. So at the end of the evening, he took me home again, and when we entered our street, he said, "Could I come in for 5 minutes?" And sure, of course, good friend, never mind. And so we sat down in the front room, and after a little bit of other talk, he said, "Well, I'd like to get married again sometime, and I think I'd like it to be you." And oh? Oh? and immediately he said, "Well, we have to pray about it, of course, and yeah, and take a little time, and I want you to pray about it." Well, of course, because by that time I thought, where is this coming from?
I can remember the day after, I think I got a call from you. You're not going to believe what just happened to me.
Yeah. After 6 weeks, I thought, well, I like him so much, I don't want to be alone anymore, you know. And so I said to Katie, yes. That evening, I couldn't wait to see him. He went to the church choir on Wednesday night, and he called from there, and he said, "Can I come over for a little while?" And I said, yes. And I was going to tell him that I was willing to marry him in a nice way, sitting down or whatever, but I blurted it out as soon as he opened the door. And he thought, "Ah, what is happening?"
Yeah, I'm sure that staggered him.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, it staggered him. Yes. Yeah. We went to one restaurant, a high-scale restaurant in Ipswich, the Hart House.
Yes, it's the Hart House, and
And
Raleigh
that was
really
2
was.
days after I had said I would marry him. He told all the waiters and waitresses, and they were.
They said, "Oh, this is so wonderful." That's good.
Who gives this woman to be married to this man?
We do.
I, Grady, take you, Tina,
I, Grady, take you, Tina,
to be my wedded wife,
to be my wedded wife,
and I do promise and covenant
and I do promise and covenant
before God and these witnesses
before God and these witnesses
to be your loving and faithful husband.
to be your loving and faithful husband.
Yeah, you can stop smiling now.
Thank you all so much.
Well, I'll
ultimately, her greatest effect on us would be her faith. There's absolutely no question in my mind. If it wasn't for Mom and Dad, who were steadfast and faithful in their faith, it showed us how to be that way, even though I rebelled for a long, long time, which must have hurt them very badly. And I believe that it's only by the grace of God and my mother's prayers that today I know the Lord Jesus with an everlasting impact. And I just thank her for that and for praying for 35 years.
Well, I told you already that I grew up in a very Christian family. I always went to Christian schools and felt very secure at home. Our parents loved us, took us to church, to Sunday school, children's church, and all their friends were church-going people. So, you know, you grow up and it's almost as if that is normal. And when I was about 18 or 19, I started thinking about, oh yes, that's all well and that's wonderful for our parents, but I have to make a commitment myself. And so that came to a point on Sunday afternoon. Everything was quiet in the house, and I was looking out the window with my arms on the windowsill. And that moment, I asked the Lord to come in my heart, and that I would serve Him all my days. And it was a wonderful feeling. And since I grew up with such a Christian home, it wasn't like all of a sudden you are another person or anything. And but it made a big difference. Yeah. And that has helped me all the years of my life. I told you already when we went to Australia, before we boarded the plane, I said, Lord, if this is my last day, you know, that'll be it. And I was ready. But all my life, the Lord has been blessing me so much. I can honestly say, I was always content with what He gave me, what came into my way, on my way. My parents, my grandparents, aunts and uncles, and other people, friends, they all play a certain part in your life, but it was wonderful. And I never said, Lord, why did you do this? Or why didn't you give me that? You know, even when Dad died. That was the Lord's will, and it was His time. And I should not complain about it and feel sorry.